Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really plunging into something transformative. How artificial intelligence is fundamentally reshaping education. Specifically, we're zeroing in on personalized learning paths.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. We're drawing heavily today from a key article. It's called How AI is Crafting Personalized Learning Paths. It's actually the first in a series looking at AI's wider impact on education.
Okay.
And this piece, it really does a good job of laying out the current landscape, how the AI actually works to adapt learning, the potential upsides, the good stuff, but also, importantly, the critical challenges we absolutely need to navigate, especially now, thinking about where we are in mid-2025.
Right. Navigating carefully seems key. So our mission in this deep dive is basically to pull out the most crucial insights from this source. We want to understand, for you listening, how this personalized learning actually functions. What does it promise? And maybe just as importantly, what are the pitfalls, the things we need to be really mindful of?
Exactly. And we'll tackle that by exploring a series of key questions. We'll start with, what are the fundamental problems with the traditional classroom model anyway? Why do we even need this?
The starting point.
Then, how does an AI platform even begin to create a personal path for a student? What's that first step look like?
Okay.
And once it has that initial profile, how does it know when to change things? How does it adapt the path as the student learns?
Makes sense.
We'll also look at how it adjusts pace and difficulty dynamically and how it personalizes the content itself, not just the speed.
Oh, interesting. The actual material.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, what are the benefits for students? What's in it for them directly?
And for teachers. Is this about replacing teachers? That's a big fear you hear sometimes.
Definitely need to address that. We'll look at how it affects teachers, and spoiler alert, the aim isn't replacement. We'll also cover what kind of information the AI actually gives back to the teacher.
Useful insights, presumably.
Hopefully, yes. Then we have to get into the challenges. The ethical hurdles, the practical ones. Things like data privacy, potential bias in the algorithms.
Crucial stuff.
Absolutely. And also challenges around the quality of the education itself and this huge issue of equitable access, the digital divide.
Right, making sure everyone benefits.
And we can't forget the human side. Is there a risk of focusing too much on what AI can easily measure and maybe losing sight of holistic development?
Like creativity, collaboration, things like that.
Precisely. And then we'll look ahead a bit. How might these paths evolve over, say, the next decade?
Okay.
And finally, we'll try to sum up. What's the ultimate promise here? What's the big picture goal?
That's a comprehensive list. Okay, let's jump right in then. Before we even get to the AI solutions, the source really emphasizes understanding the problems with a traditional model. The one most of us experience, one teacher, one lesson plan, lots of different kids. What are the core issues there, according to the material?
Well, you really hit on the core problem. It's the one-size-fits-all approach. It's been the dominant model for, over a century, right?
Yeah, pretty much forever, it feels like.
And the fundamental issue is that you have this inherent diversity in any classroom. Students come in with different background knowledge, they learn at different speeds, they have different ways they best absorb information, visual, auditory, hands-on, reading, writing.
And one teacher has to somehow manage all of that at once.
Exactly. Which is, practically impossible for one person, especially with typical class sizes of 20, 30, sometimes even more students. The source highlights a few key structural limitations that stem from this.
Okay, like what?
The first big one is pace mismatches. You've got some students who grasp concepts really quickly, they finish the work fast, and then what? They might get bored, feel unchallenged, their engagement can just plummet.
Yeah, I remember that feeling, or seeing kids like that.
Right. And then on the flip side, you have students who need more time. Maybe they need the concept explained differently or need more practice. If the class moves on before they've got it, they start falling behind.
And those gaps just get bigger over time, right?
They do. It's a cumulative effect. They miss a foundational concept, and then the next thing builds on that, and it just becomes harder and harder to catch up. That leads to frustration, maybe feeling like they're just bad at the subject.
Which is really damaging.
Hugely. Then there's the issue the source calls lack of differentiation, especially regarding learning styles. We know people learn differently. A verbal explanation might be perfect for one student.
Like an auditory learner.
Exactly. But for another student, maybe a visual or kinesthetic learner, that same explanation might be almost useless. They need to see a diagram or do something hands-on, like a simulation or an experiment, to really get it.
And it's just really hard for one teacher to provide all those different modalities simultaneously for different kids in the room.
It's incredibly difficult, which leads directly to the third point, teacher bandwidth. Teachers have a finite amount of time and energy. Providing that continuous, one-on-one, truly customized feedback and instruction to every single student throughout the day, it's just not feasible in most classroom settings.
Yeah, the logistics are staggering when you think about it.
They are. And all of this, the pace issues, the style mismatches, the limits on individual attention, feeds into the final problem, engagement gaps.
Because if it's too hard, too easy, or not presented in a way that clicks for you, you just tune out.
Precisely. Engagement is absolutely critical for effective learning. If the content doesn't resonate with your interests, or if it's consistently at the wrong difficulty level for you, your focus wanes. The traditional model inherently struggles to keep every student optimally engaged because it can't easily personalize those factors.
So it sounds like the traditional system, despite teachers' best efforts, has some baked-in limitations just due to its structure.
That's a good way to put it. And it's these limitations that AI-powered personalized learning is really trying to address head on.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly.
Yeah.
So, given these challenges, how does an AI platform actually start this process? How does it begin to forge a personal learning path for an individual student? What's the very first step?
The source describes it as a continuous cycle, always gathering data, always refining. But it has to start somewhere, right? And that starting point is what the article calls initial assessment and learner profiling.
Getting to know the student, basically.
Exactly. But it's more sophisticated than just, say, a standard pretest you might take at the beginning of a unit. The goal is to create a really detailed baseline profile of the learner.
So what does that involve? What kind of assessment are we talking about?
Well, it seems to vary, but the article mentions things like interactive diagnostic exercises, maybe some gamified challenges to make it less intimidating, perhaps.
Oh, interesting. Keep it engaging from the start.
Right. It might also include questionnaires. And the key thing is, it's trying to gauge more than just your current knowledge or skill level in a subject, although that's obviously important.
What else is it looking for?
It's also trying to identify your preferred learning modalities. Are you primarily visual, auditory? Do you learn best by doing kinesthetically? It might look for cognitive strengths, maybe areas where you excel in terms of problem solving or critical thinking.
And you mentioned interests earlier.
Yes, that's a really interesting aspect. The initial profiling often tries to capture personal interests, too. You know, what topics excite you? Sports, music, science fiction, art.
Why capture interests? How does that play into the learning path?
We'll get more into how it uses that later when we talk about content personalization, but the idea is to make the learning more relevant and engaging for you by connecting it to things you already care about.
Okay, so it builds this initial multifaceted picture of the student. Knowledge, skills, learning style, maybe even interests. That sounds pretty comprehensive.
It aims to be, yeah. It's the foundation for everything that follows.
So once that initial profile is created, the student starts learning, interacting with the platform. How does the AI system then know when things need to change? How does it decide how to adapt the path? It can't just stick with that initial picture, right?
Absolutely not. That initial profile is just the starting point. The real power, according to the source, comes from constant real-time data collection and analysis.
Real time. So it's watching as you learn.
Think of it like an incredibly attentive, silent observer. As the student interacts with the learning platform, answering questions, reading material, watching videos, doing exercises, the AI is constantly collecting data. And the article emphasizes it's collecting thousands of data points.
Thousands, wow. Like what specifically? What is it tracking?
It's incredibly granular. So yes, it tracks the basics, correctness or incorrectness of answers, obvious starting point.
Right.
But it goes much deeper. It tracks the time taken to complete tasks or answer questions. Are you answering instantly or are you taking a long time?
Okay, speed matters.
It can indicate confidence or struggle, yeah. It also notes concepts where the student hesitates or maybe where they actively request help or click on a hint button.
So signs of difficulty.
Exactly. It also looks at the types of content the student engages with most. Did they choose to watch the video explanation or did they prefer reading the text summary? Did they spend more time on the interactive simulation?
Ah, so it's learning about your preferences as you learn.
Precisely. It refines that initial profile based on your actual behavior. And maybe most crucially, the source points out that sophisticated systems analyze the specific errors a student makes.
How so? What does that tell the AI?
Well, the type of mistake can reveal a lot. Is it just a simple calculation error, maybe a slip-up? Or does the pattern of errors suggest a deeper underlying misconception about the concept itself?
Ah, okay. So it's not just that you got it wrong, but why you might have gotten it wrong.
Exactly right. It's trying to diagnose the root cause of the difficulty. All these different data points, time, hesitation, help requests, content choices, error patterns, are continuously fed into the AI. Thousands of points constantly flowing in.
Yeah. And the result is that the AI builds this rich, dynamic, incredibly detailed model of each student's unique learning state. And because it's real time, this model isn't static. It's changing moment by moment, reflecting exactly how you're doing, how you're understanding, how you're interacting right now.
That's pretty powerful to have that level of constant individualized monitoring.
It is. It's what enables the next step, actually adapting the learning experience.
Okay, so let's talk about that adaptation. The AI has this detailed dynamic profile updated in real time. How does it actually use that information to adjust things for the student? Let's start with pace and difficulty. You mentioned it can adapt second by second.
Yeah, that's the core mechanism. Dynamic adaptation of pace and difficulty. It's driven directly by that real-time analysis we just discussed. The system is constantly tweaking the speed and the challenge level based on how you're performing.
So if I'm flying through the material, getting everything right, what happens? If the data shows you're demonstrating mastery, consistently correct answers, completing tasks quickly, the system triggers what the article calls acceleration. It will automatically introduce more advanced concepts, maybe give you more challenging problems related to the current topic, or simply move you ahead to the next module faster.
So it prevents boredom, basically. Keeps you from just coasting.
Exactly. It aims to keep you in that sweet spot of productive challenge, sometimes called the zone of proximal development, challenged enough to be engaged in learning, but not so much that you're overwhelmed.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the other side? If I'm struggling, if the data shows I'm confused or stuck?
That's when the AI shifts into remediation mode. If it detects struggle, hesitation, incorrect answers, taking a long time, using help features, it will slow the pace down.
Just slow it down. Does it just repeat the same stuff?
No, and that's a critical point the source makes. It's not usually just about repeating the exact same explanation or problem. A good system does more. It might offer different kinds of support.
Like what?
Well, if you struggled with the text explanation, maybe it offers you a short video explaining the concept differently. Or an interactive simulation. It might break down a complex problem into smaller, more manageable steps. Or it might provide links to foundational exercises, suggesting you need to shore up a prerequisite skill you might be missing.
So it's trying different strategies to help you based on what it thinks might work better for you or based on the type of error you're making.
Precisely. It's using that rich data profile to make an informed guess about the best way to intervene and help you overcome that specific hurdle right then and there. It's personalized support in the moment of need.
That sounds much more helpful than just being told to try again on the same problem.
It certainly aims to be. It's about providing the right support at the right time, in the right way for each individual.
Okay, so adjusting pace and difficulty, offering different kinds of help when needed, that's a big part of it. But you mentioned earlier it also personalizes the content itself, not just how fast it's delivered, but the actual material. How does that work?
Yes, this is what the article calls dynamic adaptation of content and modality. And it suggests this is where personalization truly shines, I think was the phrase used.
Okay, intriguing. So how does it shine?
Well, beyond just adjusting pace, the AI acts as a sort of intelligent curator. Based on that dynamic profile, including the initial assessment of learning styles and interests, plus the real-time data on what you engage with it, tries to present the content in the format it predicts will be most effective for you.
So tailoring the media type to the learner.
Exactly. The source gives some great examples. If the system has identified you as a strong visual learner, maybe for a complex science process, instead of just giving you a block of text, it might present you with an interactive infographic or a simulation you can manipulate.
Okay.
If you tend to respond better to auditory input, perhaps it offers a short podcast-style explanation you can listen to.
Right.
For someone identified as more kinesthetic, maybe it guides them through a virtual lab experiment where they actually have to do the steps, or a problem-solving exercise where they move elements around on the screen.
So it's actually trying to match the teaching method to the individual student's likely preference or need at that moment.
Yes, precisely. It's moving beyond a single mode of delivery to leverage different media and formats based on the learner's profile.
That sounds like it can make a big difference in how well someone understands something.
The potential is certainly there. And there's another layer to content personalization mentioned in the source. Relevance.
Relevance. How so?
Remember how the initial profile might capture personal interests? The AI can leverage that to make abstract concepts feel more concrete and relatable. It might frame practice problems or examples using themes related to the student's stated interests.
So if I'm interested in basketball, I might get physics problems involving calculating trajectories of shots.
Exactly. Or if you're into music, maybe math problems related to rhythm or frequency. The idea is to connect the learning to something the student already finds engaging, making the material itself feel less abstract and more personally meaningful.
Wow. Okay, that combination, adapting pace, difficulty, and the actual content format and framing that sounds like a genuinely different learning experience.
It has the potential to be, yes, much more dynamic and responsive than the traditional model.
So let's talk about the payoff. If these systems work as intended, what are the main benefits for the students themselves? What does the research or this source suggest?
The article highlights several key benefits for students. The first, and arguably the most important, is improved learning outcomes.
Makes sense. If it's tailored to you.
Right. The logic is that by ensuring students achieve mastery of concepts before moving on, and by presenting information in ways that are most effective for them individually, it should lead to deeper understanding and significantly better long-term retention of knowledge. You actually learn it better.
Which is the whole point of education, really.
Fundamentally, yes. Tied to that is the benefit of increased engagement and motivation.
Because it's less frustrating.
Partly, yes. When the learning process feels tailored to your needs, when you're appropriately challenged but not overwhelmed, when you feel like you're making progress, it's naturally more engaging. It feels less like a chore or a struggle.
You feel more in control, maybe.
Exactly. That sense of agency of accomplishment, it builds confidence. And that, in turn, can boost intrinsic motivation, the desire to learn for learning's sake, not just to pass a test.
That's a really valuable outcome.
It is. Another benefit the source mentions is the development of metacognition.
Metacognition, thinking about thinking.
Yeah, basically understanding how you learn. Because these AI systems provide continuous, targeted feedback, showing you where you struggled, maybe highlighting patterns in your mistakes, showing you what strategies worked, it helps you become more aware of your own learning process.
So you start to understand your own strengths and weaknesses as a learner.
Exactly. You figure out what works best for you. That fosters self-awareness and helps you become a more effective, self-directed learner, which is a crucial skill not just for school, but for life, learning how to learn.
That is powerful. Lifelong learning skills.
Definitely. And the final major benefit highlighted is the potential for greater equity and inclusivity.
How does personalized learning help with equity?
Well, think back to the traditional model, where some students fall behind and those gaps widen. These AI systems can provide immediate, targeted support to students the moment they start to struggle. It can offer that remediation, those different explanations, that extra practice, right when it's needed.
So it helps catch students before they fall too far behind.
That's the idea. By providing individualized support at scale, it can help close learning gaps before they become chasms. It creates a potentially more equitable environment where every student, regardless of their starting point or background, gets the specific help they need to succeed and reach their potential. The source specifically mentions the potential in diverse contexts like Canada, where ensuring equitable opportunities is a major focus.
That potential for equity is really compelling.
Okay, so significant benefits for students. But what about the teachers? We touched on this, but there's often this fear. Is AI coming to replace educators? How does this technology actually affect teachers, according to the source?
Yeah, this is a really crucial point, and the article is very clear on this. The goal is not to replace teachers. It's designed to empower them, to augment their abilities.
Empower how? What does it do for them?
Primarily, it helps by automating many of the routine, time-consuming tasks that currently take up a huge chunk of a teacher's day.
Like grading, I imagine that takes hours.
Exactly. Grading, especially for formative assessments or practice work. Also, things like planning basic remedial lessons for students who need extra help on foundational skills or delivering some of the standardized introductory instruction. The AI can handle a lot of that efficiently.
So it frees up the teacher's time.
That's the key idea. By automating those tasks, it frees up the teacher's valuable time and, just as importantly, their cognitive energy.
To do what instead? If the AI is handling instruction and grading, it allows the teacher's role to shift. The source describes it as moving from the sage on the stage, the person who primarily delivers all the information, to the guide on the side.
Guide on the side, I like that. What does that look like in practice?
It means teachers can focus their time and expertise on the high-value activities that require uniquely human skills, things AI can't do.
Such as?
Things like leading collaborative projects where students learn teamwork and communication, facilitating nuanced discussions that build real critical thinking skills, nurturing creativity and problem solving, providing that essential socio-emotional support, and crucially, offering targeted one-on-one or small group mentorship and support based on their understanding of the whole child, not just the data points.
So the AI handles the personalized drill and practice, maybe, and the teacher focuses on the deeper, more human aspects of learning and development.
That's a good summary. The AI provides the individualized instruction at scale, which then enables the human teacher to be a more effective mentor, coach, and facilitator for those higher order skills. It's intended as a partnership.
That sounds like a much more fulfilling and, frankly, more impactful role for a teacher. Less delivery, more connection, and higher-level guidance.
Many educators find that prospect appealing, yeah. It leverages their expertise in a different, potentially more powerful way.
Now, for a teacher to be that effective guide on the side, they need good information about what's happening with their students. What kind of data or insights does the AI system actually provide back to the teacher?
This is where the AI becomes a really powerful tool for the educator, not just the student. The source emphasizes that these systems provide teachers with powerful, actionable, data-rich insights.
How is that information presented? Is it just a huge spreadsheet of data points?
Hopefully not.
Yes.
Typically, it's presented via an analytics dashboard. The goal is to make the information clear, easy to digest, and immediately useful.
So what can a teacher see on this dashboard?
They can get a quick overview of how each individual student is progressing. They can instantly see who might be excelling and ready for more challenge and who is struggling and needs support.
So individual tracking. What about the class as a whole?
Yes, it also provides class-wide trends. The teacher can easily identify if, say, a majority of the class is having difficulty with one specific concept or skill.
Okay. So if question 5 on the practice set was tricky for almost everyone.
Exactly. The dashboard would flag that. It allows the teacher to see not just who is struggling, but where the common sticking points are for the group.
That seems incredibly useful for planning.
It really is. It enables highly efficient and targeted interventions. Instead of waiting for the results of a big test weeks later to find out that half the class didn't understand photosynthesis.
Right.
The teacher can see that pattern emerging almost in real time based on the AI data from daily activities. They can then immediately adjust their teaching. Maybe pull a small group together for targeted reteaching, find a different way to explain the concept to the whole class the next day, or assign specific supplementary resources.
So it makes their response much more proactive and precise, based on actual evidence of student understanding, rather than just gut feeling or waiting for formal assessments.
Precisely. It helps them allocate their limited time and energy to where it's needed most, addressing problems exactly when and where they arise. It empowers them to be more effective guides.
Okay, this is all sounding very, very promising. Better outcomes for students, empowered teachers, more equity. But with any powerful technology like AI, especially one dealing with education and children, there have to be challenges, risks, things we need to be really careful about. The source must address these, right?
Oh, absolutely. The article is very clear that implementing this technology requires extremely careful and ethical navigation. It's not a magic bullet, and there are significant hurdles.
Where should we start? What are some of the biggest concerns? Maybe data. You mentioned the AI collects thousands of data points.
That's definitely a top concern highlighted: data privacy and security. These systems, by their very nature, collect vast amounts of highly granular, potentially sensitive data about student learning behaviors, performance, maybe even things like inferred emotional state down the line.
That sounds potentially risky.
It is. The source stresses that it's absolutely paramount to have robust security measures in place to protect this data from breaches or misuse. Equally important are clear, transparent, ethical policies about how the data is collected, stored, used, and who has access to it.
And regulations.
Yes, strict compliance with relevant data privacy regulations is non-negotiable. The source mentions specific examples like Canada's provincial health and education data laws and the federal PIPEDA Act. Protecting student data has to be the absolute foundation.
Okay. Privacy and security, number one. What else? You mentioned bias earlier.
Yes, algorithmic bias is another major risk flagged in the article. AI systems learn from data, and their algorithms are designed by humans. If the data used to train the AI reflects existing societal biases.
Like biases related to race, gender, socioeconomic status, or even location.
Exactly. Or if the algorithms themselves contain implicit biases introduced by the designers, then the AI system could inadvertently perpetuate or even amplify those biases.
How might that play out in personalized learning?
Well, a bias system might, for example, unfairly underestimate the potential of students from certain demographic groups and consistently steer them towards less challenging content. Or it might misinterpret the learning patterns of students from non-majority backgrounds, leading to inaccurate assessments or inappropriate support.
Wow, so it could actually worsen inequities instead of improving them.
That is the risk, yes. It could undermine the entire promise of equity if not carefully managed. That's why the source emphasizes the need for rigorous, continuous auditing of these systems, specifically looking for and mitigating bias. It's an ongoing process, not a one-time check.
That sounds incredibly important and probably quite difficult to do effectively.
It is a complex challenge, for sure.
Okay, so privacy and bias are huge ethical concerns. What about challenges related to the quality of the education itself? And you mentioned access earlier, the digital divide.
Yes, both are critical practical hurdles. First, the quality of content and pedagogy. An AI system, no matter how sophisticated its adaptation algorithms are, is ultimately only as good as the educational content it delivers and the pedagogical principles it's based on.
Meaning the learning materials and the teaching philosophy built into the AI?
Exactly. If the content library is low quality, inaccurate, or superficial, the personalization won't lead to meaningful learning. Similarly, if the AI's algorithms are based on flawed pedagogical theories, maybe they overemphasize rote memorization instead of deep conceptual understanding, then the system could actually lead to shallower learning outcomes despite seeming efficient.
So garbage in, garbage out, essentially, even with fancy AI adapting it.
Pretty much. Ensuring the underlying educational quality is absolutely vital. Human expertise in curriculum design and learning science is still essential here.
Okay, quality control is key. Now, about access. The digital divide.
This is a major concern for equity, especially highlighted in the context of places like Canada with significant geographic and socioeconomic diversity. If education becomes increasingly reliant on these sophisticated AI platforms, what happens to students who lack reliable access to the necessary technology?
Students without good internet at home, or maybe without their own laptop or tablet.
Precisely. Students in remote communities, many indigenous communities, students from low-income families, they could be left significantly further behind if they can't participate fully in these AI-driven learning environments. Over-reliance on this tech risks exacerbating the very inequalities we hope it might help solve.
So rolling this out requires thinking about infrastructure and device access for everyone, not just assuming everyone has it.
Absolutely. The source frames equitable access not just as a nice-to-have, but as a fundamental prerequisite for ethically implementing this technology. We have to solve the access problem alongside the tech development.
That's a really crucial point for policymakers and schools to consider. If this is the future, everyone needs a way to get there.
Agreed.
Okay, one more area of concern the source apparently touches on is the human side of learning. Education isn't just about efficiently acquiring knowledge or skills that AI can measure easily, right?
Exactly. This leads to the challenge of nurturing holistic skills. AI systems tend to be very good at optimizing for things they can easily measure performance on multiple choice questions, speed in solving math problems, vocabulary recall.
Like quantifiable stuff.
Right. And there's a real risk, the article suggests, that an overemphasis on these easily measurable skills could lead us to undervalue or neglect competencies that are harder to quantify, but arguably just as, if not more, important.
Like what, specifically?
Things like creativity,
Yep.
critical thinking, the
Yeah.
ability to analyze complex issues, evaluate evidence, form reasoned judgments, collaboration and teamwork skills, ethical reasoning, and empathy. These are crucial skills for navigating life and contributing to society.
And they're harder for an AI to teach or assess effectively.
Much harder, generally speaking. So the concern is that if the AI is driving the learning path based primarily on easily measured metrics, these vital holistic skills might get sidelined. The overall educational experience needs to be designed by humans to ensure it nurtures the whole child, not just the parts the AI can optimize well.
That makes sense. We need to keep the human goals of education front and center.
Yes. And closely related to that is the need to maintain human agency.
Agency, meaning
Yeah.
control.
Yeah, for both students and teachers. The AI system should be a guide, a powerful tool, but not a rigid taskmaster that dictates every step. Students need to retain some ability to make choices, to explore topics that interest them, even if they're slightly off the AI's prescribed path.
So they don't just become passive recipients of the AI's instructions.
Exactly. And crucially, teachers must retain the agency to override the AI's recommendations when their professional judgment and deep understanding of a particular student suggests a different approach is better. The human element, the intuition and experience of the teacher, needs to remain central.
So it's about finding that balance, leveraging the AI's power without losing human judgment and control.
That's the goal. A symbiotic partnership, not an AI dictatorship.
These challenges, privacy, bias, quality, access, holistic skills, agency, they are significant. It's clear this isn't a simple plug-and-play solution.
Not at all. It requires ongoing vigilance, ethical reflection, and careful design involving educators, technologists, policymakers, and communities.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly and look towards the future. Given the current state and the ongoing development, how does the source see these personalized learning paths evolving? What might they look like, say, 10 years from now?
The article suggests we can expect them to become increasingly sophisticated. One area mentioned is the potential integration of affective computing.
Affective computing, what's that?
It's essentially AI that can recognize, interpret, and even respond to human emotions. In an educational context, imagine an AI system that could gauge if a student is feeling frustrated, bored, confused, or maybe really excited and engaged.
Wow, how would it use that information?
Well, if it detects frustration, maybe it automatically shifts tactics. It could offer encouragement, break the problem down further, or switch to a completely different activity to rekindle engagement. If it detects excitement, maybe it offers more challenging extension activities related to that topic. It adds a whole new layer of responsiveness based on the student's emotional state.
That sounds potentially amazing, but also maybe a bit creepy. More data collection, too.
Both are true. It raises the stakes on the privacy and ethics discussions for sure. But the potential for truly empathetic and responsive learning support is there.
What other future developments are mentioned?
Deeper integration with immersive technologies like virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR. Imagine highly personalized, hands-on simulations tailored to your learning needs.
Like doing a complex chemistry experiment in VR, guided by the AI based on your skill level?
Exactly. Or exploring historical sites in AR with personalized information overlays popping up based on what the AI knows you're currently studying or struggling with. It opens up possibilities for experiential learning that are hard to replicate at scale otherwise.
That could be very powerful for certain subjects.
Definitely. And looking even further out, the article touches on a really expansive vision. The idea that these personalized learning systems could evolve into lifelong learning companions.
Lifelong companions. Not just for K-12 or university.
Right. Imagine an AI assistant that stays with you beyond formal education throughout your career and life. It could help you identify skills gaps as the job market changes, recommend personalized courses or resources to upskill or reskill, and support your continuous personal and professional development in a world that demands constant adaptation.
A personalized learning guide for your entire life.
Yeah.
That's a pretty profound concept.
It is. It reframes AI in education not just as a tool for schools, but as a potential infrastructure for continuous learning in society.
Fascinating. And a bit mind-bending to think about. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. The problems, the mechanisms, the benefits, the significant challenges, and a glimpse of the future. To wrap this all up, drawing everything together from the source material, what would you say is the ultimate promise of AI-powered personalized learning? What's the big takeaway?
The article really frames it as a monumental opportunity, a chance to fundamentally transform education, moving away from that static, factory model, one-size-fits-all approach that has dominated for so long.
Towards something more dynamic.
Exactly, towards a system that is truly dynamic, adaptive, and centered around the unique needs, pace, and potential of each individual student.
And the potential impact of that shift.
The potential impact is immense. The source highlights the possibility of significantly improving learning outcomes for all students, dramatically boosting their engagement and motivation, and, as we discussed, empowering educators, then freeing them up to do what they do best. It offers a powerful pathway towards achieving greater educational equity and excellence, not just in specific regions like Canada, but potentially globally.
But it comes with those big caveats we discussed.
Absolutely. The article is clear that realizing this immense potential isn't guaranteed. It requires that thoughtful, cautious, and profoundly human-centric approach we talked about. As we stand here in mid-2025, The immediate priority has to be tackling those critical, ethical, and practical challenges head on.
Data privacy, algorithmic fairness, equitable access, getting those right from the start.
Yes. Because if we don't address those fundamental issues properly, the entire enterprise is at risk, and the potential benefits might never be realized. Or worse, the technology could actually cause harm.
And it's crucial to remember the goal isn't just automation for automation's sake.
No, the source really stresses that point at the end. The ultimate goal, the true promise, is not simply to automate the human process of education.
What is it then?
It's to build a symbiotic relationship. A partnership where AI handles the personalized instruction, the data analysis, the adaptive content delivery at scale, freeing up and empowering our human teachers to focus entirely on their most vital, uniquely human, and irreplaceable role.
Which is?
To inspire curiosity, to mentor students, to facilitate deep thinking and discussion, to nurture creativity and collaboration, to cultivate the critical, compassionate, ethically minded citizens that our future really demands. That's the ultimate promise. Using AI to enhance, not replace, the human core of education.
Using AI to help humans be more human, in a way.
That's a really nice way to put it. That's the vision laid out.
Wow, okay. So we've really taken a deep dive today. We've unpacked the persistent challenges of traditional classroom models, explored step-by-step how AI uses data and adaptation to craft these personalized learning paths, examined the potentially transformative benefits for both students and teachers, but also confronted those absolutely vital, ethical, and practical challenges: privacy, bias, access, quality, the human element that we must navigate carefully. We even glanced at an exciting, evolving future, including that idea of lifelong learning companions.
It's a lot to consider.
It really is. And the source leaves us with that powerful concluding thought that the ultimate goal isn't just efficiency or automation, but leveraging AI to truly enable teachers to focus on cultivating those essential human skills our future needs. Which leads to a final thought for you, our listener. What do you think is the most important human skill that AI, paradoxically perhaps, could help teachers foster more effectively in students? Something to ponder.
Definitely a good question to reflect on.
Indeed. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. If you found this exploration insightful and maybe a bit thought-provoking, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, Tech AI and Beyond, wherever you get your deep dives. We'll keep digging into complex topics like this and hopefully bring you some surprising insights along the way.